Y'all, this class isn't fair. This video was so hard to script, and for reasons I was not expecting. As you know, for every other Spellcaster top 5 feats video so far, I always start these complaining because, oh, it's a Spellcaster. Spellcasters don't get any cool feats, darn it. Not the Psychic! The Psychic is the exception. Y'all, I could barely narrow this down to 5. This video of my top 5 psychic feats has 3 honorable mentions because I couldn't not mention them honorably. So strap in, because if you thought every spellcaster in the game had really boring and similar feats, you wouldn't be wrong for thinking that, but the Psychic is going to destroy those expectations. I want to give a huge shout out to all the members of the No Not One's Patreon page for supporting the channel. If you'd like to get your name on that list, there's a link in the description where you can pledge for $1, $5, $10, or $20 a month. They each do the exact same thing, they just support me a little bit more. I sincerely appreciate all of you. Now let's get into this, starting with my 3 honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is Dark Persona's Presence. When you unleash your Psyche as a free action, every creature within 30 feet of you makes a will save, and on a success is Frightened 1, Frightened 2 on a failure, Frightened 3 on a crit failure. Already that is ridiculous. But there's so many caveats to this feat that I had to hold it back from my top 5. First off, and my usual caveat that gets it off the list, it doesn't tell friend from foe. Anybody within 30 feet, including your allies, also have to make this save, also becoming frightened on a success. But it also has the Dirge of Doom effect, where any creature within this emanation, for the duration of your unleashed Psyche, cannot reduce their frightened value below 1 by any means. Which again also applies to your allies. So if they get frightened, they're frightened for the next 2 rounds. It's awesome, but it sucks. And there's one more big thing holding back Dark Persona's Presence. During the duration of your unleashed Psyche, you become overwhelmed by a desire to destroy. Any spell you cast for the next 2 rounds must hurt somebody. This can be damage, it can be a penalty, it can be a condition, but it has to make somebody's day worse. Basically, you have to be aggressive while this is active, and I don't feel like that's a necessary caveat. It's cool, it's flavorful, don't get me wrong, I'm not upset about it, but I feel like mechanically this can hold the Psychic back in case something goes horribly wrong and the party starts to lose horribly. They can't cast that Soothe spell because Dark Persona's Presence can't be turned off until your Psyche is no longer unleashed, and then after your Psyche is finished being unleashed, you're stupefied. Like I said in yesterday's video, it's not the end of the world, but it still means that that Soothe spell that could save the day also now has a chance of failing. So it's a great feat, but there's too much wrong with it to get it on my top 5. Next up, right next to it in the book, also at level 8, is Brain Drain. Such a cool idea for a feat. 2 actions, a creature within 30 feet makes a will save. If they fail, they become Stupefied 1 as you just absorb some of their brain power and get a focus point back. If they critical fail, it's just Stupefied 2. You don't get a second focus point back, but that would be cool, and if you did get the second focus point back on the critical failure, this might have made it to my top 5, because once again, there's a massive caveat. If Brain Drain ever works, as in they fail or crit fail, at any point, you cannot use Brain Drain again until your next daily preparations. For a level 8 feat that is 2 actions, I think that's too restrictive. I don't see why there's a massive cooldown on this. Give it an hour cooldown. Make it so it's once per encounter. Sure, but you're still spending 2 actions. You still require the target to fail a saving throw to just get a focus point back. It doesn't do damage unless the target is a spellcaster. The Stupefied condition, at best, is just reducing future will saves by 1. On top of all of that, it has the Psyche trait. It can only be used when your Psyche is unleashed at all. Why does this only work once per day? Especially, again, at level 8, getting an extra focus point back by effectively spending a turn and taking a chance on a saving throw would be fine with a 1-hour frequency. But once per day, I can't in good faith put this on the list. I love abilities that give you focus points back. It keeps you going to prevent you from running out of class. But once per day is just not good enough for an 8th level feat that costs 2 actions and a will save. And my final honorable mention, I can't believe we're still on honorable mentions, is Violent Unleash. When you unleash your Psyche, you may also, if you choose to, unleash a wave of energy dealing force damage to all creatures within 20 feet of you. Once again, say it with me. There's a caveat, it doesn't tell friend from foe, and because this can only be used when your Psyche is unleashed, and your Psyche always unleashes at the start of your turn, positioning this is incredibly difficult. You have to move at the end of your previous turn. When you know you're going to unleash next turn, you have to hope your allies get out of the way, and you have to hope the enemies stay in the way. That's really hard to pull off for 2d6 damage, increasing by 1d6 every 2 character levels. So not only are there all of those caveats, but you also only get 2 actions the turn you use this. I almost wish, you know what would have made this better? Make it 1 action, not a free action, and say requirement, you unleashed your Psyche this turn. That would put it on my top 5. Violent Unleash costs 1 action, which is the same as stunning you 1, basically. And that means you can unleash your Psyche, position yourself, and then explode. I think that would be totally fine. You'd still have to spend an action moving. Violent Unleashing for an action, you only have 1 action left anyway. What are you going to do with that? So, I don't know, I think there's too much wrong with Violent Unleash to be on my top 5. I still like it, it's still a cool feat, but because it can't tell friend from foe, honorable mention. Now we get into the good stuff. Can you believe all 3 of those? Not the good stuff. Let's start with the feat that everybody who's ever read The Psychic knows would be on this list, and it's number 5 because it's too high level. Level 18's Cranial Detonation. Arguably the coolest psychic feat in the entire class. Once per round, as a free action, if you drop a non-mindless creature to 0 hit points, its head explodes. If you dropped multiple creatures with an area of effect spell, all of their heads explode and deal 10d6 bludgeoning damage in a 15-foot emanation around them on a basic reflex save. And if any creature's hit points are dropped to 0 by one of these explosions, their head also explodes, hurting people with another 10d6 emanation of 15 feet. Now, any individual creature can only take this damage once. If there's 3 guys standing next to each other and the guy in the middle blows up and kills the guy on the left, and then the guy on the left explodes, but the guy on the right already took damage from the first head explosion, he doesn't take another 10d6. But if creatures are spaced out in such a way that this guy dies and explodes, only hits this guy dies and explodes, and then hits this guy who was not hit by the original explosion, he also takes the damage. You turn the entire battlefield into a minefield. If you're fighting like a bunch of level 12 enemies that you can kill really easily, you could easily like chain explosions to kill a ton of them in one turn, and that would be so funny. It's not that insane of a feat. Typically, probably once per encounter, you're gonna get a kill with a spell and get a free 10d6 damage. Don't get me wrong, fantastic, but it is level 18. My 4th place feat, if you take it at the level it's offered, actually wouldn't be in my top 5, but it's up here because at higher levels, it becomes insane. I am talking about level 8's Mental Static. As a reaction, whenever you critically succeed a will save against a mental effect, you can just deal your level of mental damage back to the creature who caused it. If somebody casts Charm on you and you critically succeed your will save at level 8, you just deal 8 damage to the creature who tried to charm you. This is fantastic because especially at higher level Pathfinder, there's a lot of AoE will saves from enemy spellcasters, at least speaking from my experience. So now why do I say that at level 8 this wouldn't be on my top 5? Well, it's because the Psychic can't make amazing use of this feat until level 11. At level 11, the Psychic's will save proficiency increases to Master, and what that means is that whenever they normal succeed a will save, they critically succeed instead. That basically means that Mental Static from level 11 onward can be used on any normal successful will save instead of just crits, because the normal successes become crits, which, you know, I actually don't know. I'm going to keep this where I am because I would rule it this way, where if you roll a normal success, it gets upgraded to a critical success so you can use Mental Static. But now that I'm reading the trigger, I don't know. I want to hear from you in the comments. This is a point of discussion that I didn't realize when I was scripting this. The trigger for mental static is you roll a critical success. If you roll a success and it upgrades to a crit, does that still count as rolling a crit? I would rule it that yes, it does. I would rule that whenever you roll a success, it's a critical success instead. But I don't know, because the class feature says when you succeed at a will save, you get a critical success instead. So I don't know, because that to me says you rolled a success, so you succeed, but you crit succeed. So you didn't roll a crit success. This is so pedantic. This does not matter. If anyone ever plays a psychic in my game, I'm ruling it this way, where from level 11 onward, you can mental static on a normal success, because I think that's still perfectly valid for dealing 11 damage as a reaction. It's not overpowered or anything. But rules as written, I could see it going either way. Let me know what you think. It still gets my 4th place. I love this feat. My 3rd place feat might surprise some people, and this is the kind of feat where, depending on your playstyle, you are either going to love it or think it is the dumbest, most useless thing in the game. My 3rd place favorite psychic feat is Psy Burst. For 1 action, once per round, while your psyche is unleashed, you can target any creature within 30 feet, give them a basic reflex save against 1d4 damage, increasing by 1d4 every odd level. It's basically a 1-action 1d4 saving throw cantrip. So why do I love this so much? You know, if they make their saving throw at level 2, you're going to deal 1 or 2 points of damage, but it's because it's 1 action, it doesn't use a resource, it's a saving throw spell, so if you used a spell attack roll for your normal spell, this does not get affected by it. There's so much going for this, and it's almost guaranteed damage. Unless the creature critically succeeds its saving throw, it's taking some damage. It's not a lot of damage, but some damage is always better. And this scales decently well. You know, you're at level 5, 3d4. You know, you can deal up to 12 damage, 24 on a crit success or crit fail, whatever. It's not a lot. It's not mind-blowing. It's not game-changing. You know, you're gonna do a couple points of damage, but if you know me, you know that I struggle with my 3rd action in combat a lot. You know, you can reposition, you can guidance, you can shield, that's all great, but sometimes you don't need to do any of that, and that 3rd action can feel really awkward. Psy Burst, at least while your psyche is unleashed, is a phenomenal use of your 3rd action. Also, it's level 2, so you can use it the entire campaign, which is great. My 2nd place favorite psychic feat is just better than Brain Drain, in my opinion. Once per hour, as a free action, when you cast a Psy cantrip, and you have no focus points, you can amp it as if you did. You amp the cantrip and you lose hit points equal to double the spell's rank. My question is, why is this, I punched the microphone, why is this once per hour when it's guaranteed to work, whereas Brain Drain is once per day and can fail and is higher level? Strain Mind is insane. Like I said, once per hour, that's basically once per encounter if you're out of focus points because you spammed them. Like I said in my tips video, go watch yesterday's video if you haven't already. You want to spam your amps. You run out of amps, cool, once per encounter, you can spend 6 hit points and just do it again. Sorry, it's 4 times the spell's rank, not double, but still, at level 6, spending 12 hit points to get a full free focus point every encounter, that's worth it every single day. There's no contest. This feat is insane. The Psychic's main thing is spamming focus spells. When they run out of focus spells, sure, they're a little bit weaker, but getting a whole extra focus spell is nuts, and you just got your 3rd focus point the level before this, which means with Strained Mind, you have effectively 4 focus spells every single combat, as long as you have the downtime to refocus and whatnot. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. No clue why Brain Drain is so much weaker, but Strained Mind, fantastic. And I didn't mean for this to be a theme, but my number 1 psychic feat is also, in my opinion, a better version than one of my honorable mentions. I loved the idea of Violent Unleash, but I hated that you couldn't control it, or, you know, say where you want it to be when it unleashed because it was at the start of your turn. You know, it's not at the start of your turn. Psy Catastrophe. For 2 actions, while your psyche is unleashed, you unleash a 20-foot emanation that damages all creatures. I will say this doesn't split friend from foe, but it's so worth it because you can reposition yourself to get into a good spot. Now, I've turned a lot of feats down that function just like this. What makes Psy Catastrophe so good that I put it this high on the list? It's because of the scaling. It's insane. I've almost never seen an ability in Pathfinder that scales this strongly. 1d6 bludgeoning damage per character level. You're level 12 when you get this. This is 12d6 in a 20-foot emanation. The strongest thing you could cast similarly would be like a fireball. Fireball also deals 12d6. It's the same damage, and fireball has the advantage of range, but fireball costs a spell slot. Catastrophe costs nothing. Sure, you need your Psyche unleashed, and it does auto-end your Psyche right when you use it, so you want to use it on the second round of unleashing your Psyche, but you can do it every time you unleash your Psyche. You will never run out. You can look at this as like a focus spell. If this was a focus spell, it would be insane, but this doesn't even cost a focus point. So you unleash your Psyche, you step forward, you cast like one of your Psi cantrips and amp it on your first round. Next round, you get into position, you Psi Catastrophe, and you wipe the field. 12d6 at level 12 is crazy, and this just keeps up. You're level 15, 15d6, 20d6 at level 20 is great damage. And it's a basic save, so even if they make it, they're taking half. I love this feat. I also just love the idea of a massive explosion of psychic energy coming out of you, and Psychic does have a few options for that. Again, it has Violent Unleash, it has Psi Catastrophe, even Psyburst to some extent is just exerting mental force, and I love that they gave Psychic so many options to live this fantasy, because a ton of fantasies involving the Psychic are your Professor Xavier of just like hurting people with the power of your mind, not necessarily using your spells, and I love that the Psychic as a spellcaster, sure, they have all their spells, they have their cantrips, they have their focus spells, but if you take the right feats, you can also just be someone who destroys people with the power of their mind, and that is the kind of class fantasy I love to see out of Pathfinder 2e. That's all from me. I want to give a huge shout out to all the members of the Know Not One's Patreon page. If you'd like to get on this list, there's a link in the description to support the channel. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, Know Not Ones.